Okay, then we compile and run. So it returns the arrays are equal. Of course it's equal because both of the arrays are have the same content. So let's change this to 40 and see what is the output. Okay, it returns the arrays are not equal. Okay, so hopefully you understand this. So let's move to the next section using parallel arrays. Okay, this is when you have one or more arrays. Okay, two or more arrays that contain related data, which means that you have for each subscript uh, they are related for each element in one array is related to the same element, the same uh, element ID on the other array. Arrays can be different types. For example, okay, if you want to store student ID, grade, and the average that the student get, you can store in three different arrays. Okay, you have array ID, array average, and array grade. What binds them together is actually the position. So for when I equal to 0, they will store all arrays will store information in relation to one particular students with the ID 0. So the ID 0, the ID 0, the student ID 0 will be related to the average mark and grade mark 0. Okay, so the program 7.15 shows you this. It has two arrays. One is array hour and the other is pay rate. So the size of the array is based on the number of employees set, which is 5. So both arrays will have 5 elements. Okay, so it requests the user to key in the number of work by employee number 1, then hourly pay rate for employee number 1. So what happened is the both value are being stored at the same subscript or element each time. So you can see in this diagram how they are stored. So when I equal to 0, the it will store the inputted values into the first element. Okay, so the first worker employer number 1 works for 10 hours and the pay rate is 9.75, followed by worker number 2 work for 15 hours and the pay rate is 8.62, worker number 3, and so on. So this is how they are related. They are two different arrays, but they are bound by the subscript, the subscript. Okay, the bit position. So this is called parallel arrays. Okay, you can also have parallel arrays of different types, maybe character or float or anything. So in this case we have integer and double. You can also have character, but character is a bit different because we have character. We are dealing with strings, so we are we are actually working on 2D 2D array of character. Right, so I'll show the example in a bit. Let's try this example in our own on our own. So, okay, so let's say I want to store student the marks for 5 students using array. So what I will do is I declare two arrays. One is student ID and the other is student score. Then I'll use the for loop for 90i equal to 0, I smaller than size, I plus plus. Then curly braces, and I want to do C out first. C out, enter the student ID for student number 1. So want to show number 1, right? And 9. And then put C in. So we store this into our student ID array. Alright. And then let's copy this and edit. Enter the student mark. The score for student number 1, number I. So this would be score. So that's our for loop. So if you want to show it, just copy this up. Now student ID. Okay, then score. Let's go. Alright, so okay, now you delete the C in. Delete the C in. And then student score ID. Just put student ID I and score I. See what happened. Okay. 1, 1, 3, 4, 5, 6, 18. 1, 1, 4, 1, 17, 18, okay, so it will give you all the records. Student ID 113456, the score is 80. Okay, as what you have entered earlier. Okay, so that's parallel array. Okay, let's try to change student ID into names rather than ID. Okay. Alright, so yeah, just now you have looked at student. We take the student ID. Now I've made a program for student name. Okay, so what we need is because name is a string, so you need to include the string library, and then you declare the student array as student name, the array string, the student name and the size. Okay, and then the way you use it is simply just like any other teacher array. If you run this, it will work, but it will only work if you have only one word. It won't work if you have 2 words or more. More than 1 word. Shima and 30. So this one will work. But if I try with 2 words, Nurul and Shima, so it won't work. Okay, so for this you will need to use the 2-dimensional array and a bit more complicated. So I will touch that when we come across 2-dimensional array. For the moment, you can use a string. In fact, in your assignment, notice that I didn't put any spaces between the product name, because I don't want you to go into 2-dimensional array. The assignment is to use parallel array as the solution. Okay, so let's now look at function array as function arguments. So you can pass array through functions. Okay, so So let's do some functions here. Okay, let's try to change this program into a function and use array as the function argument. So basically this program, we ask user to enter the student name and the score, and we output the what they have input. So now I'm going to change this into function. So I will have two functions. So I have main. So I will do a function input array, and let's do this first without the argument yet, and output array. Okay, so now this is the transition process. So I'm going to copy all this into my function input array. So I have my function input array, enter, enter. Okay. So now what type what return type that we should put for input array? Since we are working with array, all return type will be void input array, because we are working with array. So when you work with array, array itself, when you pass through functions, it works like a reference. It works the way the reference works. So you actually passing the first address of the element of the first the address of the first element in the array. So it will work from there. So in this case, the void input array will accept string name and comma and int month. Okay, I do not need to specify the size here, because it will depend on what has been sent to it. So I change this to name and this as month. Right. So I have my array, and okay, realize here I need to use size, so I need to pass size as well. So sorry, comma I need to accept variable size. Okay. Alright, so now I have my array array declared, not declared, definition of my array. So I copy this and put them as a prototype. So for prototype, I don't need the name, but I still need to maintain the square brackets because it denotes that is an array. So I need the data type and the square bracket, in which it tells the compiler that these functions accept string array and also integer array and one integer variable. So when I want to do the function call, I will need to send student name without the square bracket, because that's how we pass array through function call, score and size. Okay, so now that's how I call my input array. Let's continue the process with okay. So once I do this function call, so it will go into this input array, and then this function will ask for the user to input the value, and then it will go back to the main, and the student name and score is already updated, because what you pass